Let's loom knit your sweater. Today is part 6 of 6, finishing it up.
Welcome to Good Knit Kisses. We're all about helping you stitch your love and love your stitches.
In this video, we'll be finishing up your sweater, and you need to have finished parts 1 through 5, where you've made your back panel, your front panel, worked your sleeves, and set in your collar here. And you're going to need some supplies today. You'll need to go ahead and download the rest of your pattern. It's not very much, but if you want to have a complete pattern, go ahead and do that. I also use one of these little clips here. It's just used for marking the center point to keep track of my sewing. You can also use one of your leftover stitch markers. That works as well. You'll also need some scissors and your wide-eye tapestry needle. And then you're going to need some yarn for sewing. I'm going to use what I used last time. It's just a stronger acrylic than using my roving wool. And this is just a contrasting yarn so you can see it. And the way to measure out the right amount is to look at the sleeve that you're going to be seaming together, or look at your seams. And for example, on this sleeve here, what I would do is I'm going to measure out the length here that I'm going to be sewing. So I've got just one length here, and then I'm going to do it times 3. So here's a second one and a third, and then I'm going to have enough for some tails on either side. And then go ahead and measure that out twice for both of your sleeves. Set that aside, and then you want to measure out this seam here on your sleeve. And so you'll take that measurement times 1, 2, and 3, and then you'll take the side of your panels from the ribbing up to the armpit, and you'll measure that out same way, times 3, 1, 2, and 3, and then add in some tails, and then you'll need 2 of those for both sides. So go ahead and grab your supplies and get the rest of your pattern, and I'll see you in a moment. For part 6 on finishing, we're going to sew in sleeves, placing rows above markers along cast-off stitches of front and back to form square armholes. So just that first sentence there is what we'll do next. All right, I've got my panels opened, and I'm going to be looking at whether it's the front or back or front, or whichever order they're in for you, for whichever side you're starting on first. I'm going to refer to them as panels, and then we're going to say this is the sleeve. Okay, it doesn't matter left or right, front, back. So we've got the sleeve open. Go ahead and mark the middle part of the sleeve. Just fold it in half and use a stitch marker, and I like this one. It's just easy, as I can get it out easier while I'm in the middle of sewing. All right, so that's just going to mark it for later, and it's going to line up right where this shoulder seam is. Okay, so now let's go ahead and thread our needle. Okay, and we're going to go through this side over here, and you can see where my stitch marker is. It's about 1 inch down from my my bind off. Okay, and so right where we had bound off those stitches for the armhole, that measured area between the bind off and the stitch marker, those are going to be sewn together right here like that. Okay, and then the stitches along the bind off, just like when we did the shoulder seam, when we went through these little V-shaped stitches here, those stitches are going to be sewn to the sides of these. We're going to be going up the ladders here for the seaming along this armhole here. Okay, so we're going to be working all the way from here all the way down to the end and finish that off. Okay, so first start by taking your needle and going up through this very last stitch here of the bind off, and just go through and leave a nice generous tail so that you won't be pulling everything out. Okay, and then come up to where the stitch marker is, and you've got it through a stitch here, and just go through both of those V stitches in the side, just right up through those. Pull all of your slack through and leave it nice and loose. You don't want to pull tight just yet on these stitches. Go ahead and remove that stitch marker. It's not going to be needed anymore. and then come to your bound off stitches on this side here and go through go down where you have that yarn coming up, okay? And then you're going to go through those first 2 V stitches here. So go down under, pick up both of those stitches. So it's just one V-shaped stitch together, but both of these loops, pull it all the way through. And that's on the panel. And then on the sleeve side, we're going to go through a ladder. So go down where your yarn was coming out, and we're going to go up through that little ladder part. So between the stitches on the end column, the last stitch, and the next column here, you're just going through that little ladder. Pick that up. The ladder is just the yarn in between the 2 columns. Okay, pull that through, leave it loose, and now go back over to the panel side. Go down where that yarn was coming out and pick up that full stitch, so both loops of the V. Pull your yarn through, and then come back over to the sleeve where the yarn came out. Go down, and then lift up, and right here on where that purl bump was, for that purl one below, we're just going to go through that, just like a ladder. Well, it is a ladder right there. And it's not the actual purl here, but it's over on this between the 2 columns. All right, now we go back over to this next column of stitches on the panel. Pull through, come back over to the sleeve, go down where you came out, get to the next ladder, pull through. Go ahead and slow your video down or pause as you need. Use those controls to slow it down if you need. Okay, come back over to the panel and pull up this last column of stitches. All right. And then come down again on the sleeve. It should be the last ladder. Pull that on through. Okay, and then go back to the panel side, and you'll see one more column of stitches before, right where it starts turning. Just go ahead and go up through that. This one's a purl bump for me. Pull that all the way through, because we need to make sure and reinforce this corner. Don't cut the corner too short. All right, so now we want to go ahead and turn our work so we can see it easier. All right, so my yarn is coming from my panel side here, and I want to come all the way over to my sleeve and go down where I had the yarn come out before. And it helps that I have the contrasting yarn, but you can pull on that yarn to find it, and then go down where that was. And now I want to come up through this stitch here where the V is for this column right here. Okay, and this is a column that has those purl one belows. Okay, and let's just come up through those stitches. Make sure the V is both of them. So this is that first stitch along the bind off there. Pull it on through, and now let's come over to the other side. Okay, so where those purl stitches are, we're going to go to this what I call a lower part. It's in between this ridge of purl bumps here on the panel and this ridge here. So we're going to go in between our first column and our edge stitches. So this is my first column, which has those purl bumps, and then these edge stitches. So we're going to go in between there, and I'm going to pick up these 2 ladders. So now we're on the panel side where we're picking up ladders, and we're switching to the full V stitch on the sleeve. Okay, so let's just go underneath those there, pull the slack. All right, so now let's come over to the sleeve. Now, I'm going to lay this out and show you visually what I'm going to talk about, because you're going to hear me say lower and uppers, and it might get a little confused. So if I lay this down, you can see how we have these natural ridges that occur that have a kind of a waffle pattern here where the texture stitch is. I'm going to call it like an upper or raised area, okay? And then over on the sleeve over here, the ones that have the pearls, they actually kind of appear lower, and the ones that are more of a knit column, they kind of give that little bump and it kind of goes upper. So I'm going to refer to those as uppers on this side, or higher areas, and then it's the same on the other side, but it has that big long ridge. So it does have the pearl bumps. So it's just visually what I'm doing for myself, and it happens to line up equally well with all my stitches going along here in the size that I'm working. So if yours needs to shift, then do that in yours, but this is how I remember to do it. So I'll say upper, upper, lower, lower when I'm stitching together, and it helps me keep them all lined up. Okay, so I just ended where I was doing some low ones. So let me put my knitting back up so you can see it. So I was on the panel side here. Now I'm going to go to the sleeve side. I'm going to go down where I had my stitch come out before, and I'm on one of these columns here that looks like an upper. So I'm going up, pull through all these stitches, and then I'm going to go the other upper side, and I'm just going to go in between where this purl bump is, and I'm just going through that purl bump. So I go up. So I have two ups together, and now I'm going to come back over to the sleeve and go down. We're going to go to a lower area and pull through, and on the other side, you guessed it, we're going to go to a lower area. I'm going to pull through these two. There happens to be two ladders here on this side, so I'm going to go pull through those. Okay. And as you can see, I've left these stitches very long, and we can pull them and make it tighter, and I might do that when I'm a little further down. I know that I'm all lined up correctly, but you can wait until the very end to pull these all tight as well. That's why we have all of this yarn. And once you pull tight, it's harder to pull these out in case you've messed up. But you can tighten as you go along, like I said, if you know that you're lined up right. So what you're going to do is continue to go along, picking up those stitches just as I had. And then you want to make sure that this middle part is lined up with the seam here in the middle. And I'll show you how I address this shoulder seam here and this middle point. So I'll get all the way up to this point. But I do want to say before I get to there is if you start lining these up and you see that they're not exactly lining up when you put between one stitch here and one stitch here, or one stitch here, and then these two lowers, you might have to, if you see that you're going to have a little bit more fabric on this side than this side, you might have to go under a few more stitches here than you do on the panel or the sleeve side to what we call ease the fullness. That way it doesn't, when you get up to the top, it doesn't have puckering or something. And if you have to do that, I would do that closer to the armpit area rather than the shoulder, because it'll be less noticeable. Okay. All right. So keep going along back and forth until you get to this midpoint up here at the shoulder. See you soon. All right. I got to the middle, and you can see there's my shoulder, and I just did this lower area on the sleeve, and now I'm coming back over to the lower area on the right before the shoulder, and these two ladders here on the edge. Okay, that's the lower area. Okay, and so my middle point happens to be this kind of higher area that I had. So let's just take off my stitch marker, go through these two stitches here. And I don't really have a place to put it because I do have a seam right here, so I'm just going to kind of ignore it and let that line up there. I'm just going to go to this upper area here. Yeah. Actually, no, before that up area, I'm going to go to one of the columns, one of the ladders in between here. There's not really a ladder in between, so I'm just going to go to this upper column here. So kind of fudging it right here. And before I go on, I'm going to go ahead and pull on this just to show you what it looks like going halfway rather than the whole way, because it's a little bit harder to pull if you do the entire thing. I discovered that on my needle sweater. So if I can take it and pull it from this direction or that one, it doesn't really matter. So let's just go ahead and tug on that, go around this corner here, and as I pull tight, you can see it tightens up right here very nicely. And it just pulls that extra slack. You see it kind of zippering through. And then just to make sure I have enough on this side, I'll just pull the rest of it from the other end. See how it kind of just zippers it right up and makes this seam look so nice. And now you can do the same thing down here, what you've been doing, just continue along, picking up one stitch at a time and then coming back over to the ladders on the panel, okay? And let's go until we get all the way down to a column or two before this turns, okay, before the armpit area. All right, pause your video, and I'll see you down there. Okay, so we're down at the end here. I'm going to go ahead and turn mine. All right, so I've worked until really it's like a column before the corner here. This last one that I'm going to go up through is actually the purl bump right at the corner. So I'm going to go up through there and kind of turn and come all the way up. And then take this last stitch here, this last column here, which is the one with the purl one below. Go through there. And then come back where the corner is and go up through that first set of stitches or that column on the panel. Now we're working with the columns on the panels, and then we're going to come over to the sleeve and work with the ladders now in between. So we're going to go down where that stitch, where that yarn came out before, where we're sewing, pick up that first ladder. So we're just flip-flopping what we had done before when we started. Now we come back over to the panel and pick up that next stitch there with both of them there with a V. Come over onto the sleeve and pick up a ladder, over to the panel, pick up the column, yeah, there, and come to the sleeve, pick up a ladder, and oh, I can feel my stitch marker, which is right there. Okay, can go ahead and remove the stitch marker. And come back through on the sleeve, pick up that column. It's the last column before the edge stitch. Okay, now come back to the sleeve and go down where that hole is and just go through where those stitches are on the edge, and then come over to my panel again where that stitch came out before, and then go through to the back just all the way through. And then you're done. You can just take off your tapestry needle and then pull on your yarn and complete the rest of that. Just tighten that up, get my seam all zippered up. Don't pull so hard that you break your yarn. And if you have to, like see right here, if you're afraid that it's going to pull it too much and break it, you can also start working your way from the middle down to the end by pulling these stitches a little tighter as you go, like this, and getting that slack out until you get closer to the end where you feel like you can pull on it again. There's that stitch. Okay, let me see about pulling it now. There we go. Okay, now, and then you can go and pull on that until you're comfortable with it. Go ahead and cut off and have your tails and weave in your tails. And then you want to come and do the other side. Haha, I already got the other one done. So here is my other sleeve. You want to make sure and do your other sleeve. And when we come back, we are going to work on seaming up our sleeves and the sides of our panels. We'll see you soon. The next part of our finishing is sew side and sleeve seams. So we're going to start that at the bottom of our 2 panels. We're at the bottom of our front and back panels here, and we're at the ribbing. So we'll start here and go along the panels all the way to finish where the sleeves end. So it's just a straight up seam all the way to the armpit and then down to the end of our sleeve, okay? So in order to maintain this nice ribbing look, we're going to get a look that looks like this. And then you'll actually seam in. Like right now I'm using an off-color yarn, and so I don't want to sew in this last part to finish it, but you can add that in. This one's not done yet, but I want you to see how the ribbing looks exactly like a 1x1. We're going to do that over here, and you can see the selvage edge along the side here. So in order to do that, we're going to pull this apart, and you can see there's a purl bump here, but then there's a little bump to the back. It's like the ladder stitch from these 2 V's that are on the edge. So when we pull it back like this, we're actually going to be grabbing that ladder there and then going along the side of this one here, okay, and go all the way to this side stitch right here. And when we do that, it will make our pattern line up to look like we have a purl in the middle and then the 2 columns. All right, so let's do that now. I'm just going to come up through the back here and leave a tail and just come up right where one of these purl bumps is and leave a nice long tail. Okay, something you can hold on to. And then come to the other side, and we're going to come up in the same spot right underneath where one of those ladders are that we want to use. Pull through. You can leave it nice and loose. Okay, now we're going to come to the other side here and pull back that little column and go right where our yarn was coming out before and scoop up until we get to the first ladder there. That's this one. And then pull through our slack and then come to the other side. And it's the back side of this column here. You got the 2 stitches, and just go right where that yarn was coming up and pull to the side, and you're going to grab this little ladder here. It looks kind of like a purl bump. Pull through your slack, and then you're going to go over to the other side and go right up above where that yarn came out, and you'll see that little stitch when you just pull it back. You'll see it right there, and pull up. And that is easy as pie right there. You're just coming along the back side of these stitches, pulling up, and then doing the same on the other column. Okay, so continue going until you get to the top of your ribbing right here, and we'll meet at this point. Pause your video, and I'll see you in a moment. All right, so we've come up to the top of our ribbing, and we need to just come back over to where we see the pattern start to emerge. That's that row 2. We just pull right up through the purl bump there, and then come over to the side over here. And we want to kind of zigzag over because, you know, we are over kind of a stitch and a half here. And so we want to go down where we were before and go up through diagonally where the middle is of this row here with the purl 2, the purl 1 below, which is that patterned row 2. Okay, and so go ahead and pull this tight, and you can see the ribbing completely line up. Don't pull too much through, you'll pull that little tail out. And give it a little bit of slack here. There we go. Let me make sure my ribbing is nice and long. Okay, so this ending here, see how it's a little jagged? That's because I'm not using the same yarn, and so you would just end up sewing this to where it looks like with your original yarn. Just grab a little scrap piece. Grab a little scrap piece like this and you can just sew this in together, and then that looks nice and completed. But right now that looks like a row of, or column of purl stitches. It's really nice. Okay, so you're just going to complete this one by going back and forth between the ladders here. So we're in between the selvage edge and this first column here. Come over to the next one, and we're going to go between the selvage edge and the column. I'm just going to go up through 2 of these ladder stitches. There's 1 and then 2. Pull through, and then come back to this other side and go through those 2 stitches there. Let's see. Yeah, right here. 1, 2. And then that way this line is all together. Pull the slack, and then come up to the next pattern row and go underneath that purl bump, pull through your slack, and then come over to this pattern row, go through that purl bump, pull the slack, and when you tighten, you can see how it's nice and lined up. So you just continue that. I like to pull through the 2 at a time for this lower area. It just goes a little bit faster, and it still does the same job on the seam. And come over here, and as we do that, your pattern should line up. Okay, just keep going until you get to the armpit up here, and I'll meet you at that point. See you soon. All right, I'm at the armpit area, and I've done the lower portion on both sides of these, and then here is my seam. And now I'm just going to hop on over to the other side, on the other side of where my seam is. See, I've got these 2 here, and we're just going to go in between and just continue on what we were doing. And this first part that you're doing is the part that was just knitting straight. It wasn't necessarily, it wasn't making any increases, because remember on the sleeves you knit for just a little bit on the cuff and then started increasing, and then at the end you had a period where you weren't increasing. So when you get to the point of increasing, you are going to have to kind of jog over a little bit and do just a little bit of creative pickups when you get there. And go ahead and get to that point, and I'll show you how to kind of move over, and then we'll finish the cuff up together. All right, we'll see you at the point of where you got the increases. See you soon. All right, I've got my increases here. You can see it just kind of has a little bit of that stair step look to it. I'm going to jump over to this side, go back where my yarn was, and if I come up, I still have 2 of these little the ladders here, but when I come to the other side here, I need to come back down where I was, pull up through these. Sorry, I thought I was closer to 1. Let me go down here. All right, now when I come underneath here, this is kind of an awkward spot. It's not really kind of that standard look that you've been going up through, and so you may need to come, if you can find a spot that easily lets you come up through, say like a purl bump or something, then go ahead and go there. But if you have to go over diagonally because you can't really get a grip in a spot very well, then just do that. So like, let's go down here where this was a little bit awkward and it doesn't really come up right. Yeah, this is the perfect one. So this is not really coming up where these are actually ladders. Just kind of like that long increase. So I'm going to just take my needle and kind of jog over a few, and let's see. Yeah, I'm going to come in here and come up between where this is. Okay, so there's a ladder here, so I'm kind of just skipping down a few rows and finding a ladder because it's a good anchor point, and pull through and come back over here where I was before, and then come all the way over and find a part where I can come up. So there's a ladder here, and just pull on through and then jump back over. Maybe just come up one link there because I had to move so far before. Come up one link there. I say link, I mean ladder. Sorry about that. And come back over, maybe go through a couple of ladders together here and mirror that on the other side. 1, 2. And then now I'm at a point here where I may have to kind of jog over again. You see how I do that? And then I find just a good anchor point. I mean, like a part that's kind of a sturdy part to sew to. Okay? So you just want to have a nice, good, sturdy seam to connect. And then be sure that you are pulling up the slack in your arm as you go, because it's going to be harder to do it if you wait till the end, especially here at the armpit. If you can get all that up first, and then when you get a few inches in, go ahead and pull it tight here, because you don't want to break your yarn. Okay, you can always add in more yarn if you want. If you break it in the middle here, you can always add it back in at the other side. You'll just have a few more tails to weave in, that's all. All right, continue until you get down to right here where your cuff is, and I'll see you at that point. See you soon. All right, when you get down to the cuff, before you move on, make sure you're pulling on your seam, and you can hold on to the armpit area, make sure you've pulled that, and then go ahead and pull and tug on your sleeve to make sure there's no puckering to where this is not all bunched up, okay? And then you'll start on your cuff, and go ahead and make sure you're going in that last stitch here with this knit one below, or purl one below. And then if you remember, we went along the edges of one of the columns here. So on the behind this column here of the selvage edge, and then we're going on the other side for this column here. Okay, so we're going to jump over to this one, so I can go underneath where my yarn was before and go underneath this purl bump and go up where it belongs. Okay, and then now we're going to go the other side down where it was before and pull up right here, this first stitch of that purl bump on the selvage, or the side of that selvage edge. Come back over here and pull up the side of that knit column, and come back and do the same thing on this side. You're just doing it upside down this time. It just looks a little bit different. You just use your needle as your guide to find where that next stitch is. Just like that. So continue all the way down until you're done. I'll just keep this video rolling. Just slow down with the controls if you need, or pause your video. And I was pulling it kind of tight. You don't have to pull it so tight, because you know you can do that in the end. Let's see, that's that last one. Okay, now that we've got all those stitches, we want to come to the back. So we're going to go behind this one and come back on this side and go behind and all the way back through, and then pull it tight. Make sure it's not puckered. And then you have got your cuff done, and you want to sew in these, or weave in these tails. You're going to weave in all of your tails for the sewing throughout your sweater. So this is the way I'm doing it. You can turn it inside out to see it a little bit better, and just come up through here, weave them in, really a good 2 inches or so, kind of back and forth. You can even come back down and in between some of the stitches, and then go back through it again. I like to make sure it's in there really well before I cut that yarn. We don't want anything coming undone. Okay. This when it gets washed, you know, it can wiggle through. And then if you're using the same color, obviously it's going to match. Mine's just not going to match right now. I'm going to go in between some of these stitches. All right, and then I'm going to go ahead and cut this. And then I want to show you how to finish off the edge. This one looks pretty good, but you can take your original yarn and do that figure 8 that I showed you at the top of the cowl. All you got to do is thread that yarn and come around here to kind of finish it off. And this is what it looks like. Let's come down here. So I showed you the end where it wasn't quite lined up. See that? Here is one where I've come back and I've sewn on with this. Oops, sorry. This is just some of my original yarn, and I've just made that little figure 8 stitch and then woven in my tails. So I just wanted you to see what that looks like. And then I can clean this one up to look just like that. Okay? All right, so go ahead and weave in all your tails, clean up your edges, and I'll show you the end. Woohoo! Yay! You finished your loom knit sweater. Yay! I am so excited that I finished mine just in time to give to my friend. She is in remission with her cancer, and she's so excited to get her own personal loom knit sweater, and you know, having something hand knit is just wonderful. So I'm excited for her. I'm excited for you guys. Thank you so much for joining me. I really want to see your sweaters. Please tag me, GoodKnitKisses, on Instagram. So at GoodKnitKisses on Instagram. And if you're a VIP, I'd love to see it in our group. If you're not a VIP, hey, feel free to join. I would love it. If you're level 1, you get free Zooms every week with me, and once a month we do a live stream. And then if you're a level 2, you get all the free patterns that we come out with that are sent in a PDF straight to you. If you need one-on-one help, you can do a level 3. So be sure and click that join. I hope you had subscribed for this, and I hope you join me for our next video on loom knitting, knitting, or crochet. Bye everyone. Yay!
Thanks for joining us today, where we help you stitch your love and love your stitches. See you again soon.